Welcome to the Women Leaders Association Daily Member Podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland. And in each Daily Member Podcast, we will pick out a great speaker from one of our meetings that we thought you would enjoy. You can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or find a networking group near you, or if you just need access to the membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Now let's tune in for this incredible message.
Thank you for all of you who have already shared today. It's been fantastic getting to hear from you all. I'm Kristina Johnson, and I work in the music business here in Nashville, Tennessee, the very business side of things, providing financial and legal services to songwriters and artists. And I am thrilled to be here today to talk to you all about something that I am truly passionate about. To start off, how many of you have ever been told in the workplace something to the effect of, you have to take the emotion out of it, or you can't let your emotions get in the way, or perhaps something like, you should try not to be so sensitive and let things get to you? At its best, comments like this are encouraging you to evaluate all of the information that's available to you before you make a decision. Or at its best, they're trying to help you compartmentalize what's going on at work if you're feeling stressed. But at its worst, comments like this carry a bias against any kind of emotion in the workplace, as if having a normal human reaction to something at work were some catastrophic thing. Or, if we're being honest, at its worst, comments like this are intended to shut you down because that specific person can't handle your emotions. Not only do comments like this overwhelmingly convey prejudice against women, but I'd also like to suggest to you today that it is inhibiting our abilities in the workplace. The typical workplace prioritizes logic as a superior approach to business, specifically over emotion or intuition. And we could spend a lot of time talking about why that is, but I think for most of us, our experience can confirm that, right? 20th century work environment dominated by men that even today, we see a lot of stigma against approaches that might be deemed too sensitive or too emotional. But when we assume that there's only one right way to approach a situation or to approach business, we're really shutting ourselves off from a lot of other resources. The opposite of emotion is not logic. It's not critical thinking. It's not reason. The opposite of emotion is apathy. It's indifference. It's numbness. And I think most professionals would agree that having an apathetic team member, having someone who is indifferent and not engaged, makes a difference, right? It's going to have an impact on your environment, and it's going to have an impact on your results. So if we want people who are motivated, we have to be able to accept all that comes along with that. We can't keep the more positive emotions like drive and motivation and somehow discard the ones that we perceive as more negative. We all know it, right? The reality is we are humans in the workplace feeling emotions. And so rather than shutting down that part of ourselves, I believe that we can engage using the tools of emotional intelligence for everyone's benefit. Before we go any further, I have a caveat and I have an admission. The caveat is, of course, before we go any further, emotional professionalism, right? When we're talking about emotion, I want us to think about people as holistic humans rather than fragments that could be put in some sort of order, with some being preferred more than others. But I am not talking about any behaviors or actions that are harmful, hurtful, or unprofessional. Now, for the admission, As someone who identifies as a highly sensitive person, the topic of emotional intelligence and emotion in the workplace is something I've thought about a lot. And as I was preparing for today's talk, I found myself excitedly pulling scientific articles, and I had diagrams of the human brain and MRI scans and statistics about the workplace. Basically, I caught myself trying to think that I could logically convince you all that emotions are important. When we talk about emotional intelligence, oftentimes we're talking about identifying and being aware of other people's emotions, which is a very valuable skill. My focus today, however, is for us to think about ourselves and to have emotional intelligence about ourselves. To embrace and to learn from the emotions that we ourselves are feeling will not only make us better leaders, but I think it will also yield to better results in the choices, in the culture, and in the character of your company. Let's talk about choices and clarity. It's been proven across multiple studies that diversity has positive business results, including improved profits. So we know diversity, we want to talk about diversity of age, race, gender, orientation. We also want diversity of experiences, diversity of approaches, because we know that when we have a diversity of approaches and personality types, we can have more creativity when it comes to problem solving and making decisions. So why would we limit ourselves to a specific approach or one personality type as the best way when we know that diversity has proven to be a better result? A 2018 study from West Virginia University found that those who had brain damage affecting the brain's ability to feel emotion also struggle with the ability to make decisions that were associated with risk. Our abilities to feel fear, to feel anxiety, to feel guilt, to feel empathy, all of these can lead us to making more careful consideration when it comes time to make choices that are going to have a significant impact. Evolutionarily, our fear and anxiety warned us of impending danger. It doesn't look the same anymore. But perhaps our anxiety today is showing us that something is not quite right, that something's not aligned, that we've spread ourselves too thin, or that we're working in a way that's not conducive for what we need. If we're making a decision and we have a gnawing or nagging feeling of anxiety, maybe your anxiety is telling you that there's more to consider, or maybe that there's another step of the process. Perhaps your fear is warning you not to rush into anything, or preparing you for the fact that no matter what you decide, not everyone is going to like it. Maybe your fear is trying to tell you that what you're about to do is going to require a lot of courage. In a position of leadership, when we make choices, we need clarity. We need clarity from ourselves, and we need clarity from the people around us. And so if you want to hear the truth from your people, can you hear the truth from yourself? If you want people to have permission to tell you what they're thinking and what they're feeling, have you given yourself permission to acknowledge what you think and what you feel? If you want people to be comfortable coming to you and telling you things, are you prepared to be comfortable with them displaying emotion? For many decisions, I would argue that logic will tell you to be selfish. It's eat or be eaten, right? Evolutionarily, survival of the fittest. And when we repress our feelings, ego can cloud our vision. And without even realizing it, all of those repressed feelings can cause us to act very rashly. because we're not acknowledging their presence. And so instead, they are driving the car. I think that acknowledging those feelings can remind us about the significance of our decisions. And while it may not make the process any easier, it could lead to better long-term results for both you and your team if you have clarity around your choices. Do we really want to tell people to take the emotion out of it? Many of you, when we talk about culture and connection, would say that one of your biggest priorities is your people, right? The people you work with, the people you lead. And most companies would say that their priority and their focus is on culture. Office culture is made up of behaviors, attitudes, and connections. So everything about culture is made up of people, and it is shared, and it's not something that can just be dictated from the top. And since it is communal, and since it is something that requires people, it means that people need to have a level of investment. And I think how we get to that place has its roots in emotional intelligence, starting by looking inward. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, in their Employee Job Satisfaction and Engagement Survey of 2015, 72% of employees said that respectful treatment of employees, regardless of their position, was very important to their job satisfaction. And 64% said that trust between employees and senior management was vital to their job satisfaction. Those numbers are very large, and that is a significant non-financial motivator. Non-financial, right? You don't have to go get approval. It's something that you as a leader can be aware of and lean into. And I think that by leaning into our own emotions first, that's when we can then find meaningful connection with others. As a leader, especially as women, it's so easy for us to assume that we have to do it all, or to be tricked into thinking that people expect us to do it all. And when we get in the zone, when we are go, 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 hustle, pedal to the metal, it's really easy for us to forget to pause and be grateful for those around us. And I think that by nurturing gratitude is just one positive way that we can build a better culture and have greater connection. So for me, on my team, I have 12 direct reports. And something that helps me personally a lot is to just simply even dwell on that number. 12 people can do so much more than I ever could, even on my best day. And when I think about the volume and the magnitude of what those 12 people can accomplish, I tap into some humility and I tap into some gratitude. People can tell when you're not being sincere. And so just saying thank you in passing isn't necessarily going to move the needle. But if we show up as our authentic selves and we communicate with genuine gratitude and respect, I think that that's where bonds and trust are created that can help lead to that emotional investment and that employee satisfaction. I love that so many people today have already been talking about grace, because that is something that I was thinking about as well. And it's important that we're able to give ourselves grace so that we can then give that same type of compassion to other people. People today have talked about different crises, whether it be at work or personal. And so we all know that life happens. Difficult times come. We're all just trying to get through one day to the next. And so by leaning in and finding the ability to show grace to ourselves, we can then draw on that resource to show grace and compassion to those around us and meet them where they're at. You can't have a culture with robots. You just can't. You just can't. And the popular adage says that people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. And so I believe that when we nurture gratitude, humility, and compassion, that is when we're able to build culture and build connection. Do we really want to tell people to take the emotion out of it? Catalyst and character. Let's talk about anger. Anger is perhaps the most socially acceptable emotion in the workplace. Just not from women, if we're being honest, right? As much as we may want to villainize anger, stuff it down, repress it, pretend like it's not there, our anger is real and our anger is powerful. We have all felt anger and frustration in the course of our business. In her book, Rage Becomes Her, The Power of Women's Anger, which is a great read, Soraya Chemaly writes, anger is an assertion of rights and worth. Anger is the expression of hope. When our anger is handled well, it is a powerful tool that drives our society forward. Frustration and anger can tell us when maybe our boundaries have been crossed, or maybe when our values have been disrespected. Frustration and anger over an injustice, over an unkindness, over inefficiency, that is a powerful catalyst that can help us bring about positive change. And if we ignore that anger, we are numbing ourselves and being blind to all of these areas of growth and opportunity. Today's consumers and employees are holding companies accountable. And so the decisions that a lot of people make today are really being closely watched. And a lot of those decisions can't be made simply by looking at the bottom line. There's a lot of situations where honestly what we need to do is counterintuitive to logic. We know that it might not be best for the business on paper. It might not be good for the bottom line. And yet we know that it's the right thing to do. Whatever you want to call it personally, intuition, instinct, conscience, moral compass, how do you logically explain to somebody something that you just know? That is a valuable source of wisdom. And that's only there when you don't repress the feelings, when you don't take the personal out of it. And when instead you try and listen to what that intuition and that anger are telling you. Then, of course, when things go wrong and mistakes get made, as they inevitably will at some time or another, we want people to have a healthy emotional response to what happened. People who are invested and don't shut down those feelings are more likely to feel the weight of their actions. Appropriate types of guilt, not shame, not self-hatred, none of that, but appropriate types of guilt means that people accept responsibility for what they've done and they're going to work to make it right. And the people who have that level of investment are far more likely to not make the same mistake again in the future. Our anger and our frustration, they are messy emotions, but they are beautiful catalysts that can be used to bring about positive change so that we can be people of character. Do we really want to tell people to take the emotion out of it? Next, when we talk about authenticity, it's talking about working with what you've got and working with who you are, not being something else because somebody once thinks you should be or somebody once said you should be. For me, I am a person with a lot of emotions. I am a sensitive person. And rather than stuffing that down or denying it, if I want to be a successful leader, I have to be at peace with that part of myself and see all the ways that I can bring things to the table and bring unique benefits because of that. My own sensitivity and tenderness drives me. It drives me to do better for my people. It drives me to do better for my company. And it drives me to do better for the generation of women who are coming up behind me. I believe that your leadership status and your livelihood should not be dependent on you stifling who you are. I don't think that our jobs should be dependent on us pretending that we have no emotional reaction to things. Do we want people who are authentic leaders, or do we want uniformity? People today, they don't want stoic, cold leaders. And so are we being leaders for a world that no longer exists? Or are we being leaders for the world that is being created, the world that's being created right now in front of us? Now, if I've yet to convince you that emotion has any place in your work life, let me leave you with this. If nothing else, use every single tool at your disposal. We all come with a toolbox of skills, strengths. Why not use them all? If we want people to thrive and be successful in the workplace, we have to acknowledge that emotions are just part of it. It comes with the territory. This doesn't mean that we have to wear our hearts on our sleeves, but it does mean we have to stop pretending they don't exist, or that people or ourselves can magically leave them at the door when they walk in. More than that, I truly believe that there is additional wisdom and strength that each of us as leaders can tap into when we lean in to having emotional intelligence about ourselves and what we are experiencing. So, the next time somebody tells you to take the emotion out of it, I hope that you can confidently reply, "My emotions are my superpower." Thank you.
Hey, my friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share your biggest takeaway. And if you're wanting more, you can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. You can also get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or networking group near you. Or if you just need to access your membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.